And I think, looking at the quality of that work, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that without graduates of that caliber, this would not have been possible.
You have got to be kidding me.
point here is that obviously the studio that produced it, MacGuffin Paris, is one of the leading animation studios in the world and has been for 20 years. But the fact that they were able to create this project with one French director based in Paris and one American director based in LA, and yet come up with the entire animation crew based in France, has proved that it is possible to set up a project of this degree of complexity and the requirement of this high-level group of artists in a region where the artists exist, where the schools exist to turn out the talent that the studios needed. In theory, that film could have been produced anywhere. In practice, it could only have been produced in France if it was outside the USA. So I think this is an example of why these schools are so essential to the success of projects. And I'm not talking about creation of IP specifically, but in terms of quality of artistry and quality of leadership particularly. And part of that is because they work on these group projects. And one of the reasons at my studio and at the other studios represented here value these particular institutions is the fact that not only do they work on group projects, but they work on projects that are not commercially based. So they have the opportunity to fail. And I think for all the educators here present, it's a topic that comes up regularly. Students being given the allowance in the context of their studies to make mistakes, to fail, to learn by their failures and to move on. And I think this is something that is extremely important to have the opportunity to do while you're still a student. Once you're in the commercial environment, then it becomes a disaster. And inevitably you play safe, you will not take the same degree of risk. But risk is essential to create the kind of inspiring work that we've seen, like the first film. So in the context of how Despicable Me came about, the fact that the director is a graduate of Gobelins, that the entire supervising team came from either that school or one of a couple of others is not insignificant. I think it's the secret of success. And the reason I'm mentioning these two schools is not to say this only happens in Europe, because all of these leading schools are looking for tie-ups here in India. And part of my interaction here has to be, is to enable doors to open between some of these institutions, whether it's on an individual basis of some of the graduates going out to speak, or on a much closer level, across site institutions offering exchanges and faculty development. And I think this is an incredibly exciting trend, and it's something I support wholeheartedly. And I hope those of you here who are in the educational sector will definitely encourage and maintain that. Oh, so getting towards the end of my section, I'm going to show two films where I'm specifically talking about talent development for direction. It's very, very hard to find directors who have an understanding of storytelling at the level that the feature film environment requires. It takes usually years of development. If you're very, very fortunate, you might find one or two of those type of individuals as graduates. But I'm going to show you a couple of examples of the type of film that, when I look at it, I think this is a director. So the first one is not a new film. This was actually created in about 12 years ago, in fact. But I think it's a particularly good example because we've been talking about these highest levels of technical attainment. And this is an example of someone who actually had a very low level of technique in this particular context, but has fantastic directorial ability. This is a film called More, and for those of you who are animation buffs will recognize the name of the director. He was a student at, I think, USC in California as a film student. But when he graduated, he had an opportunity through a foundation grant. Actually, can we keep the lights down? Because this is very dark. Can we put them down again? Please. He had an opportunity through the Large Format Film Foundation, which at the time was pioneering IMAX projects, to make a short film. And he decided the only way he could tell the story that he wanted to tell was in animation. So he essentially taught himself animation in the process of making this film, which is not the normal way that you would do this. It was particularly successful. It won a lot of awards, and most importantly gained him a lot of attention. So I'm going to show the film and then talk a little bit about what happened to him afterwards.